Section 1. Introduction. Chomsky's warning. Noam Chomsky isn't exactly known for light-hearted beach reads. His works are dense, thought-provoking, and often unsettling. This dude is a certified intellectual heavyweight. With a career spanning over 6 decades, Chomsky has delved into linguistics, philosophy, cognitive science, and political activism. He spent decades calling out BS wherever he sees it, especially when it comes to power and those who wield it. From the Vietnam War to modern-day politics, Chomsky has never shied away from speaking truth to power. His book, Media Control, is basically a giant flashing neon sign pointing at the man behind the curtain. It dissects how media is used as a tool for propaganda, shaping public opinion and manipulating the masses. Chomsky's message is simple. Don't believe everything you think. Question the narratives fed to you, scrutinize the sources, and always dig deeper, especially if it comes from people in charge. Politicians, corporate leaders, and media moguls often have their own agendas, and it's crucial to be aware of that. Chomsky wants you to understand one crucial thing. Propaganda isn't just something those nasty dictators use. It's a pervasive force in democratic societies as well. Oh no, it thrives in democracies too. In fact, it's often more insidious because it's less obvious. The illusion of choice and freedom can make propaganda even more effective. It's how the powers that be keep us in line, even when we think we're calling the shots. They create a narrative that benefits them, and we, often unknowingly, buy into it. Think of it like this. They're playing chess and we're stuck playing checkers. The strategies they employ are complex and multi-layered, while we are often distracted by simpler, more immediate concerns. They're thinking 5 moves ahead while we're celebrating capturing a pawn. To truly understand and challenge the system, we need to elevate our game, think critically, and always question the status quo. Section 2. The illusion of freedom, propaganda, in democracies. Here's the thing about democracies. We're all about freedom of speech and all that jazz. We pride ourselves on the idea that everyone has a voice, that every opinion matters, and that we can all express our thoughts without fear of retribution. But there's a catch. That freedom? Yeah, it has some serious fine print. It's not as straightforward as it seems. The information we consume is often filtered, curated, and sometimes even manipulated before it reaches us. See, when you control the information people get, you control the choices they make. It's a subtle form of influence, but incredibly powerful. The media, the news, even social media platforms play a role in shaping our perceptions and opinions. It's like offering someone a choice between 2 doors, but one's rigged with explosives. On the surface, it looks like a fair choice, but in reality, it's anything but. You're technically giving them a choice, right? But the options are heavily skewed, and the consequences of each choice are hidden from view. Chomsky argues that in democracies, propaganda replaces the jackboot with a more subtle tool: manipulation. Instead of overt control, it's about guiding thoughts and opinions in a way that seems natural and self-directed. Governments, corporations, they all want a piece of your mind. They invest heavily in public relations, advertising, and media to ensure their messages are the ones you hear the most, and they're gonna use every trick in the book to get it. From catchy slogans to emotional appeals, they know how to grab your attention and keep it. They'll appeal to your emotions, your fears, your desire to fit in. They'll craft messages that resonate with your deepest concerns and aspirations. They'll tell you what to think, not by force, but by making you believe you came up with it yourself. Sneaky, right? It's a sophisticated dance of influence, where the puppet strings are invisible but very much present. So next time you hear a piece of news or see an ad, take a moment to think about who's behind it and what they want you to believe. Awareness is the first step to true freedom. Section 3. The birth of spin Bernays and the manipulation of the masses. Let's talk about Edward Bernays for a second. Born in 1891, Bernays was a pioneer in the field of public relations and propaganda. His work has had a lasting impact on how information is disseminated and consumed. This guy was Sigmund Freud's nephew, which is already a red flag if you ask me. Growing up in a family deeply entrenched in the study of the human mind, Bernays had a unique perspective on human behavior. He took his uncle's theories about the subconscious and used them for, you guessed it, propaganda. But not just any propaganda, he refined it into an art form, making it more subtle and insidious. Bernays figured out that you could manipulate people through their desires and fears. He realized that by tapping into the subconscious, you could influence people's decisions without them even realizing it. He called it public relations, which honestly sounds way less creepy than it actually is. Public relations became a tool for shaping public opinion and controlling the narrative. Bernays was like the OG spin doctor. He could take any situation and put a positive spin on it, making it palatable for the masses. He could sell anything, from cigarettes to wars. His campaigns were so effective that they often changed the course of history. One of his most famous stunts was convincing women to smoke by linking cigarettes to women's liberation. This was during a time when smoking was considered unladylike. He called them torches of freedom because apparently nothing says I'm a strong, independent woman like inhaling a bunch of carcinogens. This campaign not only boosted cigarette sales, but also changed societal norms. Bernays' work laid the foundation for modern advertising and public relations. His techniques are still used today, often without us even realizing it. From political campaigns to product launches, the legacy of Edward Bernays lives on. So next time you see an ad that makes you feel a certain way, remember it might just be Bernays' influence at work. His ability to manipulate the masses has shaped the world we live in today. Section 4, Manufacturing Consent, How Elites Control the Narrative. So how do the puppet masters actually pull this off? Chomsky calls it manufacturing consent. Basically, it's all about controlling the narrative. The media, the education system, even our entertainment, it's all filtered through a lens that benefits those in power. They set the agenda, deciding what we talk about and how we talk about it. Think about it. How often do you see news stories that genuinely challenge the status quo? Stories that question corporate greed or government corruption? Yeah, not so much. That's because the media is largely controlled by a handful of massive corporations. And those corporations, they're not exactly interested in biting the hand that feeds them. Section 5. The Spectacle of Democracy. Elections as public relations campaigns. Remember that whole democracy thing? Yeah, it's not as straightforward as they want you to believe. According to Chomsky, elections are basically just elaborate PR campaigns. Politicians are carefully crafted products packaged and sold to the public like the latest iPhone. Their policies, their actual beliefs, who cares? As long as they look good in a suit and can deliver a killer soundbite, they're in. The media plays a crucial role in this charade. Instead of focusing on real issues, they obsess over polls, gaffes, and who's ahead in the horse race. It's all about creating spectacle, distracting us with shiny objects while the real decisions are made behind closed doors. And guess what? We eat it up every single time. Section 6, Weaponizing Fear from Communism to Terrorism. Fear, it's the oldest trick in the book, and boy, do governments love to use it. Chomsky argues that manufacturing consent often relies on creating an enemy to be feared. During the Cold War, it was the communists. After 9/11, it was terrorists. Today, take your pick: immigrants, China, Russia, the list goes on. When people are afraid, they're more likely to accept things they wouldn't otherwise. Increased surveillance? Sure, sounds necessary. Going to war? Sign me up. The problem is, fear is a terrible basis for making rational decisions. But hey, who needs logic when you've got fear-mongering? Section 7, Chomsky, in the Digital Age, Fake News and Algorithmic Control. Chomsky wrote Media Control before the internet really took off. But if he thought things were bad, then he must be having a full-blown aneurysm right now. Social media, algorithms, the 24/7 news cycle, it's like we've created the perfect storm for propaganda. These days, anyone can be a publisher, which is great for cat videos, but not so great for, facts. Misinformation spreads like wildfire, and algorithms keep feeding us content that confirms our existing biases. It's like we're all trapped in our own little echo chambers, screaming into the void. Section 8, Fighting Back, the Importance of Critical Thinking. So, what can we do about it? Well, the first step is admitting we have a problem. We need to be aware of the ways in which we're being manipulated, to question the narratives we're being sold. We need to be critical consumers of information, especially when it comes from those in power. It's not easy, especially in the age of information overload, but it's more important than ever to diversify our information sources, to seek out different perspectives, to think for ourselves. Because if we don't, someone else will be happy to do it for us. Section 9 conclusion, a call to action. Media control isn't exactly a feel-good story. It's a wake-up call, a challenge to see the world as it really is, not how we want it to be. Chomsky's message isn't about making you feel powerless. It's about empowering you to fight back. The fight against propaganda starts with each of us. It starts with questioning, with thinking critically, with refusing to be passive consumers of information. It starts with recognizing that we, the people, have the power to change the channel, to demand better, to create a world where truth matters.